Good morning, guys. Had to turn off my music. I don't want to get a copyright strike. Not that I get paid for my videos. I just do videos for fun. Whoever watches them watches them. Um, so I had a revelation. I was sitting there this morning, as I always do. I'm a thinker. I think sometimes maybe I overthink. Think about the wrong stuff. Think about the right stuff. I think. I'm a thinker. And so I was sitting there, and it was a thought that I have had before in the past. And it was something that I struggled with. Being quite a shade older now than what I was in my early 20s. Now I'm in my early to mid 40s. Okay, to set the framework, I had moved away from where I lived in my early 20s. How old was I? 21. I think about 21. 21, 22. I think I was 21. See? Look how much time has passed. Now my memory's a little spotty. Now, I was at least 21, if not 22, but I want to say I was 21. Anyway, I had moved away. I don't know. It felt like a bit of a difficult time in my life. I was looking for work. I don't know. Maybe I didn't try hard enough. I felt like I did. I mean, maybe I was able to utilize a computer in 2001, 2002, probably. I mean, I didn't mess around with computers. I didn't fiddle around with them. I was using my Chevrolets, walking and going to get application after application, would go to the mall, fill out applications, go to fast food restaurants, fill out applications, I go to the public cemetery, anything that and most of the time I would always get back that they need somebody with experience. Well, how are you supposed to get experience if nobody ever hires you? That's what I couldn't get. Maybe it was all a money thing. Maybe I wasn't confident enough. Maybe I didn't sell myself good enough. Like I said, I was starting out, and I will admit I wasn't confident. I wasn't, and I really I was seeking so much more. Who doesn't seek things from time to time? Anyway, I think the last straw that really did it was when I had put in an app, not going to name the place, but I had put in an app for this fast food restaurant because they had a now hiring sign, and I had filled out an app. I shook hands, said thank you for the opportunity. And then, I really love my dad, and I understand why he did it. And back then, I thought he was being very pushy. I don't know, being a teenager. I don't know. Like I said, I thought he was being pushy, but I understand now, since I'm older. He was trying to get me to be persistent. He would tell me, hey, you need to give them a call tomorrow, or give them a call in about 2 days, 3 days. Definitely don't let a week go by without at least calling them once or twice. Be that squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So yeah, I mean, I did what he told me to, and all to no avail. I mean, I never had an interview. I never received an interview. And like I said, I went with one of my very best friends, and we were both looking for work. And it's not that I didn't do stuff. I had little side hustles, anything I could, do to get money. I mean, anything, clean, yard work. I mean, whatever I could do, anything short of illegal stuff. I mean, I'm not saying I was considering doing illegal stuff, but I needed to get paid. So anyway, I had heard about a place, the California Conservation Corps, and it's a place I still have no regrets on ever going to. Um, I don't want to say that was the best part of my life, because right now what I have is the very best part of my life. It was one of many parts of my life that was definitely good. Um, it taught me a lot of things that I didn't really think about afterwards, after it was all said and done, after it was over. For a lot of years I was thinking, my 30s and 40s, and especially once I got closer to my late 30s, early 40s, I'm all, man, everything that I experienced in my early 20s when I moved away from home was all for nothing. And that's how I kind of ran with it for a few years, because, it was definitely beneficial, work-wise. But when I wasn't working, I was partying. And I was partying hard to some extent. Um, I would work hard and I would party hard. And maybe there's different definitions of partying. I didn't get into hard drugs, nothing like that. I drank quite a bit, and how shall we say, I was a little cray cray, I guess. But I enjoyed it. Not just that, but also feeling carefree, frolicking, if you will. It was a chance, like how I'm reading right now. And the reason why I'm talking about all this is I was reading, about the medicine path, the medicine wheel, reading about raccoon, how raccoon kind of represents that youthfulness, frolicking, that carefree, just simply being, instead of just always doing all the time, simply being. And now that I read that, and I read about, especially in your youth and teenager, young adult, you're still youthful, you're still frolicking, if you will. That's where I'm pretty much going with this. I'm not advocating partying. I'm not advocating possibly wrecking your life. But having wisdom to know when to play and how hard to play. Like I said, like raccoon represents that youthfulness, that time to play, that time to frolic, to just simply be instead of being serious all the time. And also a part of raccoon, as raccoon, say, gets older and slides into that position of being the bear of the West, raccoon of the South. Raccoon of the South. Now, like I said, this isn't me making this stuff up. This is stuff that I've read through some really good books that I would honestly like to share. And anybody that is interested in things like that. I got to give credit to the ones who wrote it for sure. T.J. Garrett, that's off the top of my head, and Michael Garrett, his son. They both co-wrote at least one book, maybe two books, but they've also wrote separate books. I don't have them with me on hand; they're in my house, but they're very good. They're very good books, and it has helped me a lot. I guess you could say retracing my roots, learning things that just never got passed down over the last few generations, things that just never got passed down. And it's like I'm rediscovering what once was. It's helping me balance things out. And that's the thing about that, is that with Raccoon, like I said, as Raccoon, as things from the south start to go to the west, you start to not only frolic, but you start to learn things as you go. Self-mastery over things, learning, that could be skills, a lot of things. And like I said, once you get to bear, then it's more like, okay, I have all this mastery. I have self-mastery over things, more confident. Now I'm strong. Bear represents strength. You're strong. And that's the thing about this, is that you can utilize that will at any point. You can utilize the medicine wheel, any points of the medicine wheel to balance yourself. You don't have to be a certain age, to go back to the south. The north represents the deer, represents calm, represents quiet, represents wisdom, represents, passing down knowledge, wisdom, information. And, like I said, the east, the sunrise, the eagle, the sunrise, having things starting out new in life, everything comes full circle. And you finally get to that age to where, you become dependent again, belonging, family. And that's how you start out life too, is being dependent, belonging, family. And I'm just glad that, anytime you feel out of balance, you can go back to any point of that circle and utilize it. Realize, okay, maybe I'm taking life too seriously. Maybe I just, still maintain those responsibilities, but at the same time know when to take, maybe a few minutes out a day just to step back and just relax. Or maybe you're relaxing too much. Maybe you're relaxing a little too much, and you need more self-mastery over things. Maybe you should learn something new, read a good book, push yourself a little more. Maybe your strength is not there like it once was, maybe even physically. Right now I kind of find myself needing to work on self-mastery, needing to work on strength, not just in the physical sense, but I think in the, shall we say, strength in, mental strength, right? Having confidence, being persistent. I don't want to say aggressive, but progressive. uh, when it comes to my job, when it comes to different aspects of my life, just being a go-getter. Sorry for the cliche. Um, so that way I can balance things out. Because lately I have been utilizing the South a little bit. I'm not saying I've been frolicking, but I've, I guess in a sense you could say I have been frolicking. Um, I'll go outside with my morning cup of coffee and I'll sit outside, take my sandals off, just plant my feet right in the grass, sit on in a chair on our swinging bench, listen to the birds, right at sunrise or a little bit before sunrise. Um, that's what I've been doing. That's my version of frolicking, of playtime, is just relaxing. Or maybe that is me utilizing the North. I really don't know now at this point. But I want to say maybe I'm utilizing both of those points. I'm utilizing the North and the South. I'm not taking life too seriously. That's probably utilizing the South a little more. But at the same time, I feel like I'm utilizing the North and the South. Maybe certain aspects of the South I'm utilizing a little more of, in the way of just taking time out for myself. But like I said, point being, which brings me to my conclusion, is that my time up in Northern California, it wasn't a waste. See, to me, I thought it was a waste because it's like, I didn't learn nothing. Yeah, I worked up there, but then I partied. I should have took full advantage of everything. Maybe more opportunities. But you know what? Thinking that way is a waste in itself. That was a time for me for self-mastery, for working hard, for self-mastery, in between South and West, but also for a time for frolicking, a time for just letting go a little bit, a time for, maybe even in the East, being amongst friends that were like, kind of like family to me. A lot of us young adults, striking out on our own for the first time. And, the only thing we had, a lot of us came from different upbringings, different backgrounds, and the only thing we really had in common was our job. And then a lot of us became pretty good friends. And some of those, I still am in contact with, at least on Facebook. Before Facebook, it was, through writing letters, maybe texting. Some dear friend of mine, he passed away a few years ago. He was a roommate of mine. But that time, it wasn't for nothing. It wasn't. Everything. There's a purpose, whether you understand it or not. Even if it's not a good purpose, it's there. And I think to me, that was one of the hardest things for a while, because I didn't understand, like, what was the purpose in all of that nonsense? But it almost seems to me as that nonsense was needed. That's what I needed at that point in my life. Like I said, not advocating partying or wrecking your life. But I felt like a little bit of that nonsense is what I needed. Maybe that taught me some things along the way. I still have a lot of reflection on things. I don't regret going up there and getting away for a few years. I don't. I believe that was a time for me to frolic. That was a time for me to discover self mastery when it came to things. When I say self mastery, I learned how to run a chainsaw when I was up there. I drove state vehicles. I worked on salmon restoration. I became a salmon restoration specialist. I was a green hat. Oh, that was some of the funnest work. I'm not going to lie. There was probably times where, it was bittersweet, but the bitter didn't last as long. Yeah, probably only because of the elements. Sometimes it was cold. But I think that, all in all, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed doing some trail work here and there. Granted, I wasn't much one for hiking, but there was some beautiful, beautiful sights, stuff that people pay thousands upon thousands of dollars to go do every year, when it comes to hiking. I mean, like actual hiking, camping out. We went to Kings Range National Forest. Oh, some of the most beautiful spots up there. Like I said, I got paid to go and do what other people have to pay for. I got paid to do it. Like I said, salmon restoration specialist. That was some of the most interesting work that I ever did. And I have no regrets. Period. Am I a little wiser now because of things? Yeah, you know what? There was certain decisions I made that wasn't in my best interest. But you know what? I don't regret it because I've learned something from it. It was a teachable moment. It was a teaching moment. And hadn't certain things happened or certain decisions I made, I wouldn't have learned from it. Period. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for learning from other people's mistakes for sure, but sometimes there's just certain mistakes that maybe we can't learn, until we make them ourselves. There's certain things that people say. Pay also attention to what they don't say. The rule of opposites. Anyway, I'm kind of getting away from what I was talking about here. But either way, I'm glad I came to that conclusion. It was just like a light bulb turned on. Like, whoa, wait a minute. Hold on. That was a period, a point, a time in my life, a season in my life that for the most part, yes, learned some self-mastery skills, but also frolic. But either way, I'm rambling on at this point. Got some stuff to do. I have some cactuses to remove from my neighbor's yard. And don't worry, I'm definitely cautious about that. I want to say the last time I made a video, there was, I think I said that there was like maybe about 16 cactuses that I had to remove. I'm starting out with all the small ones first. I've already removed a few of them, maybe 3 weeks ago. But I got to get back on that today. There's still a few things in my own backyard I need to take care of. But as far as over there, the neighbors, yeah, that's the only thing that I'm going to devote to today, and then mow the lawn in a few days. I don't think it's really grown as fast just because it really hasn't rained in a little while. Sort of. Not like how it was, though. But I still got to plant the wildflowers in the backyard. I still need to plant the hummingbird sage. And I will be utilizing the rest of that compost to the fullest extent. But yeah, just some stuff I got to do. And oh man, oh man. All right, guys, take care.